Today I'm going to be slow stitching with some embroidery thread onto some denim, and this is my second slow stitch project for February, and it's Easter decor themed. So these are some templates that I've got on my Ko-Fi page. I'll put the link down in the description below. And what I did was cut out some ovals, egg shapes of some denim, just some scrap denim that I had from some old jeans. They've been washed, so they're perfectly clean, and I just cut out these little egg shapes, and I used some glue stick to stick on some of the wadding, so that like the quilt batting, that's the word I'm looking for, on the back of each one of them. And then I've just used some pretty bright coloured embroidery floss to just slow stitch some very basic stitches onto the egg shapes. And this template here, like I say, it's going to be on my Ko-Fi page, but they're really basic stitches, so very few stitches that I'm using. I'm just using some basic cross stitches, straight stitch, chain stitch, and then where I've put some circles on there, I could either do satin stitch or possibly just add some sequins or buttons, something like that. And it's only really just to give you an idea if you want some inspiration to start off your projects, but obviously you don't have to use them. But it might be a handy template if you do. So what I'm doing is backing the egg shapes in some wool felt, and I got that from an Etsy shop, so I'll link those details below because I absolutely love these colours. Now originally I was going to make these into little hanging decorations, so that's why I showed you there the piece of ribbon, and all I was going to do was just back it in a piece of felt and just stitch around the outside of the egg, and just to secure the front denim piece onto the piece of felt on the backing, so that would just make a nice little hanging decoration. But I decided not to do that. I thought I'd do something slightly different and sort of change this into almost a little bit of a game, really, because in my previous video I made some little tiny felt bunnies which can be hidden in the garden instead of hiding some eggs, and I thought that these would make really cute little pouches to put the bunnies in, so that you could hide these and the bunnies, and then it could be a game of match up the bunny with the little egg pouches. So that was my idea. So what I decided to do was cut around the felt and just add a little extra piece of felt onto the back, and that would make a little pouch. Now I'm not completely thrilled with the way this turned out, because I don't think for this particular project I left enough of a seam allowance when I was cutting out the original eggs. I was thinking I was slow stitching on the front just to make it pretty and decorative, but not thinking that I might actually turn it into a puffy egg shape, and that I might need a little bit more space to sew around the edge to secure it to the backing piece. And also that's my very dodgy attempt at making the little pouch on the back there. It went rather wonky. So basically I think if you were going to make these into little pouches like I have done here, I would add an extra bit of seam allowance. So I would cut the eggs a little bit bigger, give it a little bit around the outside, and not slow stitch too close to the edge of the actual egg, so that you've got plenty of space to be able to sew it onto the backing fabric and then turn it back round again. But this is what I did, so this is what we've got. So you can still turn it into a hanging decoration, but I have decided not to do that because they're just going to be sort of hidden round and about. But what I did decide to do was, because I'm going to be sewing around the edge and then turning it, so I've got right sides together, and then I'm going to be stitching around the edge and turning it right way round, right way out. Instead of just sewing it straight on like that, I changed my mind and decided to sew the pouch part onto the outer felt part before I actually put it onto the denim egg. So you'll see that in a moment. I actually do a little blanket stitch around the outside. So here I just decided to add a little bit of a blanket stitch. I thought that might make it a little bit easier. Bear in mind I knew at this point that I hadn't left myself enough seam allowance really to sew it comfortably. So here I'm just adding a little bit of a blanket stitch around the edge of the felt just to secure that little pouch piece, and that way it's not going to fall off. I'm going to make sure that I definitely catch it when I turn it right way round, and it's not going to fall off then. But of course you can still make it into a hanging decoration if you like, even if it's a little pouch, because then you can pop maybe a little tiny foil egg or something like that, and then that's easier for children to find rather than one of those little tiny foil eggs. And maybe use them as hanging decorations. Maybe it's quite trendy these days, isn't it, to have a little Easter tree, a little bit like a Christmas tree, but they're sort of twig assemblages, as it were. So you see those more often. So now I've started to just sew round the outside of the denim and the felt on the back, and obviously I've got the right sides together at this point, and I'm going to turn it the right way round in a moment. So I'm just stitching all the way around the outside, and I just found it easier to turn it from one side to the other so that I could see what I was doing. But I did leave quite a big gap at the bottom so that it was easier to turn round. But again, with hindsight, just thinking about it, really I don't think I needed to do the whole turning round. I think if I'd thought a little bit more about it, I would have just done it with the wrong sides together and just sewn around the outside, and not actually done the whole turning right way round, because I didn't like the way the edges went, and also obviously sewing up the bottom once I'd started the padding, it didn't look the same as the top half of the sewing, because I hadn't left enough seam allowance. Obviously it was a little bit more difficult to sew that bottom edge neatly. But I do turn it the right way round, and what I do when it is turned the right way round is just add some quilt polyester batting. It's actually it's just like toy filling, but I use, because I've got some that's actually sort of rolled flat, I just sort of shred that a little bit and stuff that in there. But really it's just toy filling that you put into there just to make it a little bit plumper and make it look a little bit more like an egg. Like I said, I'm not completely thrilled with the way it came out. So hopefully you've enjoyed seeing this process. Even though it didn't turn out perfectly for me, I think it's quite a good idea, and I certainly would maybe think about it slightly differently next time, but it is quite a nice idea to do, to hide in the garden or to use as decorations. So if you've enjoyed seeing the video and like the idea, please do give me a thumbs up. Remember, those templates are available on my Ko-Fi page if you want to use them, to give you some ideas. So there's the finished egg, and what you can then do is pop the little bunnies in the back of them, and if you haven't seen that video yet, I shall link that somewhere on this video so that you can watch that next. Thanks for watching. Bye.